Have you ever felt invisible? Like no matter how hard you try, the world just doesn't see you. Maybe it's happened when you walked into a store and the staff ignored you, or worse, treated someone else better because they looked like they had more money. It eats at you, doesn't it? That feeling of being judged by what's on the outside instead of who you really are. Before we dive in, let me ask you something. Where are you watching this from? Are you sitting in your cozy living room somewhere in New York, sipping coffee while the rain taps against the window? Or maybe you're lounging on a couch in Sydney, scrolling through videos after a long day. Drop a comment below and tell me where you're tuning in from. It helps remind me that stories like this connect people all over the globe. Let's dive deeper. It was 8:45 a.m., and the air smelled faintly of damp leaves as Avery Callahan stepped out of her small apartment building. She tightened her scarf around her neck, pulled her coat closer to her body, and sighed. Today wasn't supposed to be special, not for her anyway. But there was something about returning that blender she'd bought last week that made her stomach churn with unease. Something didn't feel right. Avery owned a chain of stores called Harvest Home Goods, but she rarely told anyone. To most people, she was just another face in the crowd. A woman in her early 30s trying to make ends meet. Her business had grown steadily over the years, but she preferred staying behind the scenes, letting managers handle daily operations. Still, every now and then, she liked to visit one of her locations undercover just to check how things were running. This time, though, it wasn't curiosity driving her. It was frustration. The blender she'd purchased had stopped working within 2 days. A faulty motor, according to the manual. No big deal. She could afford a replacement easily enough. But what bothered her was the principle of the thing. If she, as the owner, couldn't get good customer service, then what hope did anyone else have? She pushed open the glass door of Harvest Home Goods, hearing the familiar bell jingle above her head. The store smelled clean, like fresh linen mixed with polished wood. Rows of shelves lined the walls, stocked with everything from kitchen gadgets to home decor. Everything seemed normal at first glance. But then she saw him, Trevor, a young employee with slicked-back hair and an expensive-looking watch, stood behind the counter chatting with a customer. He laughed too loudly, his smile wide and practiced. Avery recognized him immediately. Trevor had been hired 6 months ago, promoted quickly due to his charm and sales numbers. On paper, he was perfect. In person, he gave her a bad feeling she couldn't quite put into words. Avery grabbed a shopping basket and wandered down the aisles, pretending to browse while keeping an eye on Trevor. She noticed how he interacted with customers. When a well-dressed man in a tailored suit approached the counter, Trevor practically leapt over it to assist him. "Sir, let me show you our premium collection," he said, his voice dripping with enthusiasm. Meanwhile, a middle-aged woman wearing faded jeans lingered nearby, clutching a receipt. She cleared her throat twice before finally speaking up. "Excuse me, I need help with a return." Trevor barely glanced at her. "Just a moment," he muttered, not even looking away from the suited man. Avery's jaw tightened. Was this how her employees treated customers? Did they really judge people based on appearances? She wanted to march up to Trevor right then and demand answers. But no, that wouldn't work. Not yet. She needed proof. She waited until the crowd thinned out before approaching the counter herself. Clutching the broken blender under one arm, she forced a polite smile. "Hi, I'd like to return this item, please." Trevor looked up briefly, his eyes scanning her outfit. A plain black coat, sneakers, and a scarf knotted loosely around her neck. His expression shifted ever so slightly, almost imperceptibly dismissive. "Sure," he said, dragging the word out. "Do you have the receipt?" "Yes, here it is," Avery replied, sliding the slip of paper across the counter. She watched as Trevor picked it up, inspecting it slowly. Too slowly. His fingers tapped rhythmically against the edge of the receipt, as if he were debating whether or not to bother helping her at all. He said after a pause. "This model is part of our clearance section. Returns can only be processed if the item is unopened." Avery blinked. "Unopened? But it stopped working. I've only used it twice." "I'm sorry," Trevor said, shrugging. "That's company policy." Her heart sank. She knew full well there was no such policy. It was printed clearly in the employee handbook that defective items could always be returned, regardless of condition. Yet here he was, lying straight to her face. For a moment, anger flared inside her chest. How dare he treat her this way? And what about all the other customers who might not know any better? But instead of snapping back, Avery took a deep breath. There was still more to learn. Okay, she said softly. Thank you for letting me know. She turned and walked toward the exit, her mind racing. Outside, she leaned against the brick wall of the building, letting the cool air calm her nerves. What should she do next? Should she confront Trevor directly? Fire him on the spot? No, that wouldn't solve anything. She needed to understand why he acted this way. People didn't become rude or selfish overnight. There had to be a reason. Over the next few days, Avery decided to dig deeper. She visited the store multiple times, each time dressed differently. One day, she wore sleek boots and carried an expensive handbag borrowed from her sister. Another day, she donned oversized glasses and carried a worn backpack. Each visit revealed the same pattern. Trevor bent over backward for wealthy-looking customers, but barely acknowledged those who appeared less fortunate. It broke her heart to see it happen again and again. Finally, she decided to talk to some of the other employees. At first, they were hesitant to speak freely, unsure of who she was. But once she introduced herself as just a concerned shopper, their guard dropped. "You noticed Trevor, huh?" said Marcy, a soft-spoken cashier with curly brown hair. "He's intense, always talking about hitting his sales targets. I think he's scared of losing his job if he doesn't perform." "Scared?" Avery asked, frowning. "Why would he think that?" Marcy hesitated. "Well, rumor has it he's got a lot of debt. Student loans, medical bills, stuff like that. He talks about it sometimes during breaks. Says he needs this job to survive." Avery felt a pang of guilt. She hadn't realized Trevor was struggling so much. Maybe his behavior wasn't entirely his fault. Maybe he was just desperate. Determined to find a solution, Avery scheduled a meeting with Trevor the following week. When he arrived, he looked nervous, shifting uncomfortably in his chair. "Ms. Callahan," he began, his voice wavering. I didn't mean to disrespect you the other day. I swear I'll do better." "Stop," Avery interrupted gently. "I'm not here to reprimand you. I want to understand. Why do you treat certain customers differently?" Trevor stared at the floor, his cheeks reddening. I thought I could impress them, make bigger sales, get bonuses. I figured if I focused on the ones who could spend more, I'd look better to management." "And what about the others?" Avery pressed. "What about the people who don't wear designer clothes or drive fancy cars? Don't they deserve respect too?" Trevor swallowed hard. "Of course they do. I just panicked. My rent's overdue, my student loans are piling up, and my mom's hospital bills keep coming. I thought if I worked harder, with the right customers, I'd get ahead faster." Avery nodded slowly. She understood fear all too well. Running a business came with its own share of sleepless nights and endless worries. But she also knew that cutting corners and treating people unfairly would only lead to bigger problems down the road. "Here's what we're going to do," she said firmly. "First, you're going to apologize to every customer you've wronged. Second, I'm assigning you to shadow Marcy for a month. She knows how to treat everyone equally, no matter who they are. And third," she paused, considering her next words carefully. "Third, I'll personally help you create a plan to manage your debts. We'll figure this out together." Trevor's eyes widened. "You'd do that for me?" "Yes," Avery said simply, "because everyone deserves a second chance, including you." Over the next several weeks, Trevor transformed. With guidance from both Avery and Marcy, he learned to prioritize kindness over profit. Slowly but surely, the atmosphere in the store improved. Customers began leaving happier, and reviews online reflected the positive change. One evening, as Avery locked up the store, Trevor approached her. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for believing in me. Most bosses wouldn't have cared." Avery smiled. "We're all human, Trevor. We all mess up sometimes. The key is learning from our mistakes and doing better next time." As she walked home that night, Avery thought about how far they'd come. Life wasn't fair, and neither was the world. But maybe, just maybe, acts of compassion could tip the scales, even if only a little. Moral of the story: true success isn't measured by profits or promotions. It's measured by the lives we touch along the way. Treating others with dignity and understanding creates ripples that extend far beyond what we can imagine. So the next time you feel invisible, remember your actions matter. You matter. And together, we can build a kinder, more empathetic world.